My name is Margaret, and for years I was invisible in my own house. My son was my only light after my husband passed, but the day he brought her home, his new bride, I felt a shadow fall over us. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. She smiled sweetly, called me Mom, and pretended to respect me. But behind closed doors, her whispers grew louder. She told my son I was too old-fashioned, that I was a burden, and worst of all, that he should choose between her and me. The night, I overheard her laugh with her mother on the phone, saying, "I'll make sure she's out of the picture forever." My hands shook. What she didn't know was that I had eyes everywhere. A camera, a hidden truth, and the strength of a woman who had been betrayed one too many times. That was the night I decided, if she wanted war, then war she would get. I remember the day she first stepped into my house. Her heels clicked on the wooden floor like a countdown, each step echoing inside my chest. She was dressed in white, too perfect, too polished, like she wanted to blind us with her sweetness. Her lips curved into a smile, but her eyes were cold, calculating, scanning my home as if she was already measuring where she belonged and where I didn't. "Hello, Mom," she said, her voice sugary, too rehearsed. I tried to believe her. God knows I wanted to. I welcomed her. I even hugged her. My son, standing beside her, looked at me like I was the luckiest mother alive. But in that moment, something in my gut twisted. The first weeks passed in silence, but silence carries more truth than words. At the dinner table, she'd drop comments between bites of food, small, sharp daggers wrapped in honey. "Maybe we should redecorate this place, make it less old-fashioned. She's probably tired, at her age." I laughed it off, but my son didn't. He sat there, nodding, his fork scraping against his plate while his eyes avoided mine. That cut deeper than any insult. At night, I could hear her footsteps pacing in the hallway, whispering to him behind closed doors. I pressed my ear against the wall once, trembling, and I heard her say, "She's holding you back. You can't live your life while she's still here." My hands shook so badly, I dropped the glass I was holding. The sound shattered through the dark hallway, but no one came to check on me. I stood there, barefoot on broken pieces, bleeding quietly, while they laughed behind their locked door. That was when I realized she wasn't just a wife, she was a thief, slowly stealing my son, my home, my place in this family. And as I wiped the blood from my foot, one question burned in my mind. If she could take my son's love so easily, what else was she planning to take? It started with small silences, the kind that creeps into a home like fog, soft at first, then heavy enough to choke you. My son stopped asking me how my day was. He stopped leaving his coffee cup in the sink for me to wash, stopped sitting with me in the evenings to watch those silly game shows we used to laugh about. Instead, I'd hear their laughter echoing from behind their bedroom door, muffled whispers spilling through the walls like poison. I'd sit alone at the dinner table, my spoon scraping against porcelain, while their plates stayed untouched because she had convinced him to eat with her upstairs. One evening, I cooked his favorite meal, roast chicken with rosemary, the way he always begged me for when he was a boy. I waited, the clock ticked, the food went cold. When he finally came down, he smiled awkwardly and said, "Sorry, Mom, we already ate. She wanted sushi tonight." Sushi. In my home, he hated sushi. I raised him. I knew his tastes better than anyone, but he ate it anyway because she wanted it. My phone calls started going unanswered, my texts left unseen. When I knocked on his door, she was always the one to answer. Always with that practiced smile. "He's busy, Mom, we'll talk later." Later never came. At family dinners, she positioned herself between us, like a wall I could never climb. She whispered in his ear, her hand resting on his arm, her nails painted blood red, staking her claim. He would nod, laugh with her, and not once look at me. The silence wasn't just between us anymore. It was inside me. I could feel it hollowing me out, making me smaller, invisible in my own home. One night, as I sat alone on the porch, I heard them through the open window. Her voice, sharp like glass, "She still thinks this is her house. Don't worry, darling. Soon it'll be ours." I froze. My breath caught in my throat. My son didn't protest. He didn't defend me. He just let her words hang there like a death sentence. That night, I realized the truth. It wasn't just my son I was losing, it was my home. But if she thought I was going to fade quietly into silence, she underestimated me. Because silence, my dear, can be far louder than screams. It happened on a Sunday. A day that used to mean something: church in the morning, a big family meal in the afternoon, laughter that filled every room. But now Sundays were hers. She planned everything, controlled everything. That morning, I came downstairs dressed in my best navy dress, the one my son had bought me years ago for my birthday. I thought we were going together, as always, but when I reached the bottom step, I froze. They were already at the door. She was holding his arm, her lipstick the color of fresh blood, her smile sharper than any knife. My son looked at me with guilt in his eyes, but guilt isn't love. Guilt doesn't save you. "Mom," he said softly, "we'll see you later, okay? We're going out, just the two of us." My heart cracked in two. She didn't even look at me, just tightened her grip on him like she was proud of cutting me out, but that wasn't the worst of it. The following week, there was a family gathering: my sister, cousins, old neighbors. I dressed carefully, clutching the invitation I had assumed was mine too. But when I arrived, everyone was already there. Tables full, glasses clinking, music playing, and me. I wasn't on the guest list. I stood at the doorway like a stranger, my chest burning, my hands trembling. I saw her, my daughter, in-law, whisper into another woman's ear, both of them laughing as their eyes darted toward me. Then I heard it. Her voice, dripping with venom, just loud enough for me to catch. She wasn't invited. "This is our family now. She doesn't belong here anymore." The words landed like knives, slicing through every bone in my body. My son, my own flesh and blood, didn't come to me, didn't defend me, didn't even look at me. I turned and walked home, each step heavier than the last. When I reached my empty kitchen, I collapsed into the chair, staring at the cold plates I had set for dinner. My tears dropped onto the wood, one by one, until they blurred everything. That night, something inside me shifted. Humiliation burned, yes, but it also hardened me. And as I sat alone in the dark, one thought seared into my mind. If she wanted to erase me from the family, then she had no idea what kind of enemy she had just created. For weeks, I carried that humiliation like a scar carved into my chest. Every look she gave me, every whisper behind my back, every time my son chose her silence over my love, it all piled up inside me like poison. But poison can be turned into a weapon. One night, when the house was quiet, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the shadows crawling along the walls. Something inside me told me I wasn't crazy. I knew she was plotting something, and I needed proof. I remembered the small camera I had hidden years ago, back when my husband was still alive. He had installed it in the hallway for security, and after he passed, I left it there, unused, almost forgotten. My son never knew it still worked, and she didn't even know it existed. That night, with trembling hands, I turned it back on. My heart pounded so hard, I could hear the blood rushing in my ears as I scrolled through the footage. Hours of nothing, shadows, silence, empty rooms, and then her. I froze as the screen lit up with her face. She was sitting on the couch with her phone pressed to her ear, her voice sharp, dripping with venom. "Yes, Mama, don't worry. He'll sign everything over to me soon. Once the house is in my name, the old woman will have nowhere to go." The old woman. That's what she called me. I leaned closer, my nails digging into the armrest. She laughed on the screen, her voice sickly sweet as she added, "He's blind, Mama. He trusts me. By the time he realizes, it'll be too late. She won't have a penny left, not even her dignity." My stomach turned, the room spun. I wanted to scream, to storm into their bedroom and drag her out by her hair. But I didn't. Instead, I replayed the clip again and again, letting every word etch itself into my skin like fire. Each syllable became fuel. Each laugh became a promise. When I finally turned off the screen, I wasn't the same woman anymore. I wasn't broken or humiliated or silent. I was something far colder. And as I sat in the glow of the camera's red light, one thought whispered through me, steady and merciless. She thought she was the hunter. But she had no idea I was already watching. After I watched that clip, something in me recalibrated. Pain turned to purpose. Humiliation turned to a plan. Revenge didn't feel like rage anymore. It felt like work, precise and slow, like stitching seams together until the whole dress ripped at once. I began by learning the rules of their world. I walked the house like a detective, touching surfaces, reading receipts, memorizing the rhythm of their footsteps. I reopened the old camera folder and started collecting everything. Conversations, late-night visits, the florist's invoice with a different name, a bank notice left carelessly on the counter. I made copies, stored them in places she'd never think to look, the false bottom of my tea tin, the lining of my coat pocket, even hidden inside the old hymn book on the shelf. Each scrap of paper, each recorded whisper, became a brick in the wall I was building. I needed allies. Revenge is easier with people who still remember you as you are, not as she painted you to be. I called my sister, the one who still remembered my laughter, and confessed everything. Her voice trembled at first, then boiled with anger that matched mine. We plotted how to drip, feed the truth without looking like vindictive children. I spoke to an old neighbor who ran the local church bulletin. She owed me kindness for a favor I'd done years ago. Quietly, we set little traps, misplaced keys, an extra invitation, a lovingly worded comment to the right cousin that would ripple outward. But the most delicious part was watching her make tiny mistakes. Once she thought she'd already won. She began to rush. Her hand trembled when she shuffled papers. She left her phone unlocked on the counter. She boasted in the wrong rooms to the wrong people. Pride is clumsy, and clumsy people leave footprints. I didn't want simple exposure. I wanted a collapse so neat it looked inevitable, like gravity had done the work. I would not throw accusations in the street. I would hand my son the mirror and let him shatter it himself. Then, one night, as I placed the last piece of evidence where she would stumble upon it, I heard the front door close softly and his footsteps approach my kitchen door. He paused, key still in hand, and called my name, a small, uncertain sound I had not heard in months. Would he finally see what I had seen, or had her lies already rewired his heart beyond repair? The day I had imagined 1,000 times arrived not with fanfare, but with the quiet cruelty of ordinary light. I had arranged a meeting not in a courtroom, not with dramatics, but at the family table, the very place she had stolen from me. My sister brought proof, the neighbor brought testimony, small envelopes moved like ghosts across the table. I watched her face as she opened each one, invoices, voicemails, the camera clip burned to a USB like a confession carved in plastic. She clenched her jaw, her mascara ran, pride had made her brittle. My son's eyes flickered between us like a man lost in fog. I saw recognition on his face at first, the slow, sickening bloom of understanding, and then the pivot, anger at me, then at her, then confusion that made him look smaller than I had ever seen him. When I played the clip, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. Her laughter, the one that used to pierce me, now sounded hollow, recorded and replayed like an accusation. The church bulletin, the forged signatures, the financial transfers, each plane of the lie peeled back, exposing the raw underbelly. People who had once whispered behind their hands now leaned forward, eyes wide, mouths slack. She attempted to speak, to weave another story, but the threads had been cut. Her web unraveled in real time. An aunt whispered, all this time. My son's hands trembled on the table. He stood up so quickly his chair toppled back with a clatter. For one terrible second, he looked like a boy again, betrayed and bewildered. Then he turned to me. There it was, the question I had feared and hoped for. Was I the woman who protected him, or the one who had tricked him? Had I been patient for love or patient for ruin? He asked me, voice cracking, "Did you do this to get back at her? Did you set this up?" The room leaned in. Her eyes begged for salvation. The family looked to me for what I would do next. I could have told him everything at once, confessed and begged and fallen at his feet. I could have shown the piles of evidence like trophies and demanded his rage. But there is a cruelty in mercy. I chose the truth but not the theatrics. I placed the camera USB into his palm like a scalpel and said softly, "Watch." He watched. And as his face changed, as comprehension and horror and sorrow stitched themselves together, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. Exposing the truth could break the man I loved almost as much as it would break her. Would he forgive me for breaking the lie, or would he resent me for tearing his world apart? The storm came and went in a single day, but storms change the landscape forever. After the confrontation, the house was quieter, not with peace, but with the settled hush of things unfinished. She left, suitcase in hand, like a shadow finally stepped out of a frame, and my son stayed behind, hollow-eyed and fragile. We spoke in pieces afterwards, small sentences, awkward silences, the kind of conversations two people have when the words are heavier than air. I did not celebrate. There was no triumphant music, no cinematic standing on the porch moment. Revenge, even when justified, leaves a taste like iron. I had wanted justice, yes, but what I found when the dust settled was something more complicated. I had taken back what was mine, but I had also pulled a thread that unraveled a family. My son was no longer the same man who once fell asleep on my shoulder watching old films. He was different, tempered by betrayal and loss. There are nights I still wake to the sound of their laughter echoing from memory, and I touch the old camera now stored in a drawer like a relic, a thing that once saved me and once stole from my peace. I water the plants that lean toward the window, and sometimes I cook his favorite roast chicken on Sundays out of habit, not hope. He comes sometimes, sits across from me, and we eat in companionable silence. Sometimes he asks about the past. Sometimes he doesn't. If there is a lesson in all of this, it is not righteous or neat. It is a lesson in borders, who draws them, who defends them, and what you are willing to do when someone tries to erase you. I am older now. I have fewer illusions about people, and I have learned where my strength comes from, not from proof or exposure, but from the hard, cold refusal to be invisible. I keep my diary locked, not because I regret the words, but because some things must remain between you and the night. I will not ask for forgiveness. I will not expect understanding. Instead, I offer this small confession. I loved, I lost, and when pushed to the edge, I fought to be seen. There is no victory song, only the quiet closing of a book, the echo of pages turning, and the soft, final hush that follows a long confession. Would you have done the same?